Hello everyone and welcome to the Creative Noah Land podcast. Now, I've struggled a little bit with the introduction to this one, as our guest on this episode, Boxi Trixi, has had one hell of a creative journey. One filled with resilience, adaptability, sacrifice and also a little bit of luck. But he definitely lives up to his name and is an incredibly multi-talented box of tricks. Now, he would say that he's not a chef, despite working in some of the best restaurants in both Argentina and Spain. He'd say he's not a musician, despite discovering a revolutionary instrument that opened a lot of doors and allowed him to perform on albums and collaborate with famous musicians from around the world for 15 years. And he would definitely say that he wasn't an artist, despite this being the thing that he's probably most well known for now. Prolifically producing his distinct style of neo-primitive art and being a major contributor to the global paste-up scene for over 20 years. For Boxi, it's not about any of these titles, definitions, or even destinations. It's about the journey and the pursuit of something much, much bigger. And as you're about to find out, no creative journey is ever a straight line. Oh, and also, fun fact, he used to live in a cave. Anyway, check out the links to Boxi's work while you're listening, of course, and let's get into it. My first question, you lived in a cave. Does that contribute to the style of work? Because in my interpretation, the style of work you produce now, correct me if I'm wrong, I'll get you to explain to the listeners about your work, but to me it feels quite primitive.
It is.
And I know that's going to sound very strange to some people that you lived in a cave, but do you think that's got some sort of contributing factor?
Could be, but it wasn't the only one, I think. Because I wasn't looking for it, I wasn't looking for living in a cave, or it wasn't my idea, it just happened. But yeah.
But do you think that has had some
probably
influence on the work? Can you tell the listeners a little bit about how you would describe the work that you're creating now?
I would say a little bit of neo-primitive.
What do you mean by neo-primitive?
Neo, because it's not only influenced by primitivism, of course it is, but at the same time I have a lot of influence by, let's say, for example, music, cover of albums, designs on skateboards, on the boards, that kind of very colorful designs and very just one image, just an impact. I have an influence from many things, but living in a cave, definitely. I was living in a cave for a few months in Granada without electricity, without any kind of heating systems, but it just happened. I wasn't looking for it, if you know what I mean. But I'm sure it has influence on my art, because at the end of the day, that got me thinking, wow, life could be so simple. We don't really need much to keep living, really.
And would you describe your art as simplistic?
Very.
How do you work? How do you create? Can you tell the listeners? Because there's a multitude. You do block carving, you do straight to canvas, you do paste of work.
Yeah. I don't have I think I don't have a system of working. Well, one thing leads me to other things. For example, when I'm doing paste ups on the street, that takes a lot of walking. You're walking for hours and hours and hours. When you are walking on the street, you find a lot of materials. I don't know if people, they're aware of all the materials that are available for you on the street that people just throw away. For example, let's say if I see a container on the street, I'm the kind of guy who go there and have a look and see what's inside.
You mean like a skip?
Like a skip or a container or some kind of bin. I say, well, I'm always looking for things on the street.
And how does that enter your work?
Because, for example, let's say I find a nice wallpaper that was supposed to be for decorating a house, and people just they have an extra roll and they won't use it, so they just chuck it away. And I said, okay, I can use that for paste up. I like that background. I'm going to use the background and I'm going to print a woodblock print on it. I'm always looking for results and materials. In this country, people, they chuck away so many things like paint. I got a whole shelf, all that paint, I found it on the street. And that's nothing, because I use a lot of paint, but I keep finding things all the time. Like for woodblock prints,
bits of timber,
it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So I use it for carving the wood blocks. So I'm always looking for stuff. It's not like I'm looking for stuff, but it's like I have a radar, I say.
You have an awareness for
these things. Yeah. Most people, they just walk on the street. I'm looking for stickers, street art, things I can use to produce my artwork. So for me, just walking down the street, it's not like for most people going from point A to point B. I also go, okay, I can use this. Like all the things, most of the things that you're seeing now in my studio, I found them on the street.
So you're very resourceful. Where does that come from?
Being from Argentina, I was born in Argentina. It's very difficult to get things there. I mean, everything is very expensive. If you want to do something, you have to find your way to do it. If you don't have a lot of money to do it, you have to find your way. So this whole thing, I think it started there.
Okay. Obviously, we need to go backwards a bit.
Yeah.
What's growing up in Argentina like? Like you say, when you're trying to do something, you have to be resourceful and find a way. But art's not the focus when you're growing up, really, is it?
No, not at all. Growing up in Argentina, I think it's very tough. And it's great because we are very passionate about most of the things that we do. You can see that on football. For us,
South American passion is very famous.
Yeah, but I would say especially in Argentina, we are very passionate about things. Probably it's because basically we are Italians. Everything, it's like a religion, it's like,
very dramatic.
Very dramatic.
Okay.
And if you're going to do something and you're going to live for it and die for it, and it's very...
And what was that when you were growing up? What were you passionate about? What was the thing that excited you?
My passions were music. I remember when I was about 8 years old, listening to some tapes from my sister, like The Cure, Rolling Stones, and lots of things. Skateboarding, I started at that age as well. Football, sports, different things. So I would say mostly music and skateboarding.
Why skateboarding? It was just a cool thing.
Yeah, it was a new thing. I don't know here, but I'm talking about probably 1986, 87. So then I remember I saw a guy skateboarding, and I said, what's that? He was older than me, probably about 10 years old, and he told me, this is skateboard, and I want to do that. And that's how I got into that.
And did that build friendships, community, network?
Yeah. Friendship, being on the street all the time.
What was it like being on the street in Argentina in the 80s with this skateboard?
Back then it really started for me in the 90s when I was 15. Because when I was a kid, I just skateboard maybe on the weekends, something like, instead of playing football.
It's more like a toy.
Like a toy,
right?
But
at 15, you found a bit more of a passion.
At 15, I met these guys at school. We used to play together. They said, do you skateboard, man? Because I see you're wearing this jacket. I don't know, this Powell Peralta jacket, and do you skateboard? Yeah, I skateboard. Yeah, I skate, like old skateboard. Yeah, I skateboard. Do you skateboard? Yeah. Okay, maybe instead of playing music this weekend, we can go out and skateboard. Yeah, so it was like a crew, let's say, and we just loved it. For us, it was like playing music, rehearsing, and after that, going skateboard. But I'm telling you, every last for 10 hours a day, It was mad. So
and you said rehearsing, so music was a massive part of your life.
I think I always love to listen to music. As I'd say before, I started when I was 8, and it wasn't just like, okay, let's put some music. I really, I remember me sitting down in my bedroom, just wow, really paying attention to music. It wasn't a hobby or
It wasn't just a
something to
background
amuse
thing.
me.
You were
Yeah,
analyzing
yeah.
it
I was
lyrically,
analyzing
musically.
and say like, wow.
Did you play musical instruments before you had this point?
No, not at all. Not at all.
So when you said you were rehearsing at 15, how did
it started at secondary school? Because, as I said before, I used to live in the south side of the city in a place called Villa Dominico. And that was probably an hour and a half away from my secondary school. But you had a break of 2 hours. Most of the guys there, they just went home, have lunch. And I wasn't able to do that because it took just an hour and a half just to
get home. Then you'd have to get back.
Yeah. So I remember there were a couple of kids there who were in the same situation. And we said, okay, and we need to find things to do for 2 hours. And I started seeing these guys carrying guitars or bass guitars. And I said, yeah, maybe I can give it a go. So in those 2 hours, instead of just doing nothing or relaxing, we just hire a rehearsing room to go play, basically, if you can call that playing music. But for us, it was very, very important. It was like, let me put you in context. This was early in the 90s. The hardcore movement was starting to be a huge thing between teenagers.
Right.
Not hardcore, because when I say hardcore, people nowadays, they think about electronic music. Yeah. They call it hardcore. I'm talking about hardcore music like punk rock, post-punk rock. The difference between it was like punk rock was like no future, life shit, fuck this.
Yeah,
I don't want
nihilistic.
Exactly. And hardcore was like, fuck this, let's do something about it to change it.
So you had that attitude.
Exactly.
It was a bit more activist.
Exactly.
Like, we're going to make change.
DIY, do it yourself. It doesn't matter if you're not good enough to play. It's all about having fun, spend time with your friends. Who cares about really just, you have something to say, do it. It doesn't matter what people say or think.
Was that an attitude in Argentina? Or were you kind of anti-establishment in that sense?
Yeah. And I think it wasn't really happening in a lot of places, but I'm pretty sure it was happening in places like New York, Sao Paulo, in Brazil, a few places. And in Buenos Aires was huge. It was called BA Hardcore.
Buenos Aires Hardcore.
Buenos Aires Hardcore. It was a huge thing because...
And did you see change as a result of this movement? You said hardcore being the movement that wanted to say, fuck this, let's do something about it.
Yeah.
Were you seeing a change?
Of course, but not in the world, in us, because we weren't naive. People say art's going to change the world. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's a very naive idea.
Okay,
thinking that art's going to change the world.
Say more. Why do you think, when you say art, do you mean on a broader perspective, music, art, culture?
Yeah.
Why do you not think that can change the world?
Well, it hasn't. Has it? No. I think it can change your life. Art.
I see.
It can change your life.
And that's what it was doing for you in Buenos Aires at that time.
Exactly. It was changing my life. And I can see it was changing my mates' lives. But we weren't.
You weren't on a mission to change the world. You were
No. And I think it has something to do with being from Argentina, that we're used to that things are gonna fail because we had so many bad governments, so many crisis after crisis. So I think this was a little bit more about like, change your life. You don't like your life. You maybe doing this, you can change your life.
Do you think growing up in that situation built a resilience in you and your friends that wasn't perhaps in maybe other cultures?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so you said it manifested in music and skateboarding.
Yeah.
You didn't have any formal lessons in music. You just picked up a guitar?
No, but I think my lessons were like going to concerts, back then, I don't know if you're allowed here in the UK, if you're 14, 15, going to a concert on your own. I don't know how it works. Back then, everything was allowed. There were no rules, and these hardcore bands were playing in very small venues for probably 50 people, 100 people. Then it started to grow, and maybe 200, 300, 400, 500. But it was never mainstream. It was always underground.
Was that important?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think because when anything goes too commercial,
but because it was a sense of community. Because after a few months or a few years, if you went to the concerts, there were always the same people, And I remember you paid back then 5 pesos, let's say £5, and you were able to see probably 15 bands. It started at 2 in the afternoon and it ended at 4 in the morning.
Oh, well, that's a party. You said that when you were listening to the tapes from your sister, you were analysing the music. It wasn't just background. So when you were going to these concerts, you've had no formal training, but are you looking at the way they're playing, analysing the breaks, analysing the flow of the music, analysing the rhythms, analysing technique? Because how does one learn
not
an instrument without any...
Well, I remember I took a guitar lesson. The guy told me, my teacher, I was 14. The teacher was probably 20-something. He told me, okay, so what bands do you like? And I said this and that. And he didn't even know them because there were these new hardcore bands. And he said, okay, what else do you have? Maybe I said, okay, maybe the Sex Pistols or the Ramones or
something a bit more forward-facing, more commercial.
Something that he can relate to, exactly. And he told me, okay, then I'm going to show you this. He told me, look, the guitar player from Ramones, he plays these 3 chords. And with these 3 chords, he made probably 15 albums. I said, okay, let's do it. So he showed me and I said, let's start a band,
On 3 chords, you decided, let's start a band. Well, if the Ramones can make 15 albums with 3 chords.
Exactly.
So in the rehearsal rooms, you and your friends
I remember an interview that I watched back then when I was about 14 or 15 to Johnny Ramone, the guitar player from the Ramones, and he was saying something that for me everything clicked, because he said, when I was a kid there was this progressive rock like Led Zeppelin and all these very good musicians playing these solos, 5-minute solos, and I was listening to them and I said, wow, that's something that I will never, ever be able to do. But what I can do, it's like playing these few chords very, very fast. And I'm going to be the fastest guitar player on earth. So I think he saw a way to get away with it, but he already knew he was never going to be that good.
But that goes back to what you said before about the Argentinian attitude and the hardcore attitude of, okay, fuck this, but we'll find a way of making it work.
Exactly.
With the 3
because
chords.
At the end of the day, it wasn't about being a professional musician or make a living out of that. And I think
what was it about for you then?
Having fun. A lot of the kids back then was like, hey, Dad, can you give me some money because I need new shoes and new clothes because I want to go to this club on the weekend. This other scene that I was in, it was something very different, It was like, okay, here's 5 pesos. And with this very little money, I can spend the whole night watching these great bands, having fun. You don't even
with a community
with the community that is building. And
okay, so when did you and your friends get brave enough to go, well, I think we could do a gig or something maybe?
From minute 1.
Really?
Yeah.
There was that confidence of just...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in our school, in our secondary school, there were lots of bands. Everyone was in a band or in 2 or 3 bands. There was this...
It was a real scene then.
Real scene.
Was it competitive among...
Not at all.
No, everyone just wanted everyone to
create,
enjoy, and have fun.
I really loved that. It wasn't competitive because I always hated competition.
Why?
I don't know. But I don't believe in winners and losers,
Say more. Why?
because life is not like that. For me, it's not about, I mean, you can win, but maybe you're miserable. And so what's the point in winning if you're going to be
Sometimes you
miserable?
win, but you actually lose. And
Yeah,
sometimes you lose, but you actually win.
exactly. I think it's about trying to have a good time, whatever it is that you're trying to do, because life is very hard most of the time. So I think there's a few things that you can find out about life, about doing this and that, that makes you happy, and you get away with it.
That sounds very much the mentality of you, your friend group at that time. It was about fun and we can do this and it's about enjoyment. So where are you in terms of your education, your aspirations? What is that like? Or is it, no, I just want to be in bands and...
I had no aspiration back then. Well, this school was more trades, if you wanted to become an architect or a mechanic or a chemist or a carpenter, But I mean, after 3 years, I realized it wasn't make me happy.
What were you studying?
Architecture.
Yeah.
Construction, not architecture, construction, yeah. To become an architect eventually.
Yeah.
Or an engineer. But I was spending lots of hours during the weekend just drawing blueprints and boring stuff. Well, not boring, but I just wanted to go out, skateboard.
And playing music.
Yeah, play music. So it was like a very adult life, being not very happy at all during most part of the day. And I think music and skateboarding was my escape, because this school was very, very hard. You had to study a lot. And I realized this is not for me. I just like to hang out with friends,
make music,
skateboard,
and enjoy your life.
But it wasn't like I was thinking about maybe I'm going to be a professional musician. I'm going to make my living out of, no. I just wanted to have a escape from my reality, waking up at 6 a.m., being at school at 8, from 8 to 6, going back home there at 8 in the evening, have dinner, go to bed, same thing,
monotonous repetition of...
And I was 14. I think this kind of life, maybe if you're 20 or 20 something, you can deal with it. But when you're that young, well, I felt like it wasn't worth it. I said, no, I don't want this. I just want something else.
Did you have any pushback from family, teachers, all this stuff when you had this realization?
No, not from my family, not from my teachers. They definitely said, they said, I think you're doing the right thing. Yeah, I think you're not cut, from this kind of things.
So where does that leave you then, Boxi, when you're...
So I went back to a regular type of school, and from all the things I learned during those 3 years in this special school, I was able to do nothing for 2 years, because I have already learned everything back,
I see. I see. So you went to the special school and you'd learned the skill sets that were being taught already in the...
Yeah.
So did that just open you up to go, well, I don't have to do this, so I can now play music more, skateboard
exactly
more.
So basically, during my time in those 2 years to complete my secondary school in this new school, I did nothing. I just listened to music. I had a Walkman. Was it a Walkman there?
Yeah,
or a Discman?
Might have been one of... Either way, we're showing our age, Boxi. So, we're showing our age.
Yeah. I had lost all my friends because I was the new... Of
course.
I left the school. My previous school.
Was there a similar sort of hardcore scene?
No.
Oh, nothing?
No. These were like regular kids.
Right. Yeah.
They would think about, just going to a club on Saturday and being pretty.
Yeah, they're the ones that are asking mum and dad for money for shoes and clothes to go to the club.
Exactly.
So were you a bit of an outcast?
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Great.
Did that fit the whole ethos of being, right, well, I don't fit in, I just do my own thing?
Yeah, but I didn't mind, I didn't mind. I just wanted to be left alone. during those 2 years to complete my secondary school. I just wanted to.
Was that isolating though?
Yeah,
for you?
very, very,
But
very.
it sounds like you weren't bothered by that.
No, I was listening to music. Music was my comfort because the teachers, they were like, we had a very honest conversation, with the principal there, and they told me, look, as long as you don't give us trouble, we won't bother you.
Oh, amazing.
So do whatever you want, just finish your school.
And was there any art involved at this point? Or
No.
just music?
Music, and let's say I started doodling, just doing some scribbles and doodles, and whilst I was listening to my Walkman.
Just to keep yourself entertained.
Just to keep myself entertained. So I had a lot of that. Can you imagine? Like,
that is
because this wasn't a school that I was there from 8 to 6. I was only there from 8:30 to 12:30.
Oh, right.
It was very easy for me.
Okay.
Just a few hours a day. As soon as I finished, I went back home, grabbed my skateboard, go skateboarding to meet my former mates from the other school. So
was the distance too great for you to be playing in the band and stuff now? Then?
Yeah. Distance in Buenos Aires, it's a huge thing, but you get used to it. For me, getting to the tube or the subway for 2 hours, it's something really, I'm used to it.
It's just normal.
It's just normal for me.
Yeah.
Going from one point to another, and it takes 2 hours and a half or 3 hours. Okay. Yeah. Public transport. You have to take the bus and then catch the subway and then
skateboard the last
skateboard. So, yeah.
So what happens when you finish at school? You've given yourself, in some ways, a music education just from listening.
From listening and from playing with another.
Dare I ask, have you developed any more than 3 chords in your repertoire? No, still just the 3.
No, I was playing guitar, and that's all that I remember. I had 2 pedals, an override and a metal zone. And with those 2 pedals and the guitar, I was
Did your band have a name?
I remember one, it was called Psycho Chicken.
Psycho Chicken.
Psycho
That's
Chicken.
Brilliant.
I remember another one called Molestando Niños Muertos. Bothering dead kids.
I was going to say, I did the translation in my head. I was like, I beg your pardon?
Yeah, exactly. But I remember I had lots of bands, lots of them. Because they didn't last, of course. They lasted 6 months. We were kids.
Someone got bored, moved on.
Exactly, getting a job.
Yeah.
But maybe back then, when I finished secondary school, I was 18. So I decided to take a year off. Well, of course, I had a job.
What were you doing?
Watching adverts, getting paid for watching adverts.
And I feel like we need to explore this a little bit, because I remember you saying that this gave you a lot of time.
A lot of time.
Can we just explain that? What do you mean you were sitting watching adverts? How is that a job?
I used to work it was called Channel 13. It was like BBC, or Channel 4, I don't know. So my job basically was every day they handled me 10 VHS cassettes. In every show, they had different types of adverts, traditional and non-traditional. So I had to control that all the adverts were in place for certain amount of time. Let's say this client paid 15 seconds of airspace. So you had to control that. Okay, was the product showing in this show for 15 seconds? Yeah, it was. Tick on that. Okay, this is correct. No, this was only showing for 5 seconds. So we owe the client 10 seconds. And it was.
I see. I understand.
Watching a lot of TV.
How do you think that had an influence on you? Or did it have an influence? Or are you still, oh my God, I'm so bored of TV, I just want to get out and play music?
I wasn't even bothered because, to be honest, I was on my own all day. I had my office. I shared it with another guy. This guy was in his 60s, something like that. And he didn't bother me at all. He was like, do whatever you want. Like, just as long as you do the job, do whatever you want. So I had it for a year.
Was that another one of those jobs, a bit like when you're at school at the thing where you could almost go, right, well, I've done that.
Yeah.
Now I can
Exactly.
free up my time to do whatever else I want.
Exactly.
It was a means to an end.
Exactly.
For free time, music, skateboarding,
Yeah.
enjoying your life.
Yeah. But the result of watching all these hours of TV is that I used to watch a cook named Carlos Arguiñano, a Spanish guy. And he had a TV show for Argentina, and I had to watch his show every day. And after, of course, a year, I said, wow, I think I'm very interested in culinary stuff. Maybe I can do it. So I went to culinary school.
But you've always had that sort of attitude going, I can do that. Or I'll make it happen from that hardcore attitude.
Exactly. No, in an arrogant way. You know, I always knew I was never going to be that good. But I always say, like, maybe I can do it, like, with my style and my approach. But I really like it. I think I'm going to enjoy this. And
is that how you felt about cooking and culinary?
Yeah.
You think you're going to enjoy it, so go ahead in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so how did that manifest? What do? You go to culinary school?
I went to culinary school. Again, back in the day, it was a very weird thing to do.
Why weird?
Because I remember some friends saying, hey man, cooking, that's for women, you know?
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. This is probably 25 years ago. These chefs wearing all white shirts and the hats and it didn't exist. This guy, this show brought it to Argentina, you know? Basically, he had his own style, this guy.
But that inspired you?
That inspired me a lot because he kept it simple. He said, you can be a chef. He encouraged people to do it. I'm going to teach you how to cook with the things that you have in your fridge, not buying this filet, you know, this special filet or this special thing. It was very simple. And I felt very attracted to it and say, yeah, I'm going to give it a go. So I went to culinary school and I did pretty well. I was working for hotels and restaurants.
In Buenos Aires?
In Buenos Aires, yeah. I was working for the top hotel in Buenos Aires. And I was working for a very, very good restaurant as well in Buenos Aires. But back then it started this thing about the discipline of the kitchen.
I see, like the head chef was a bossy, militant, as we would probably see the Gordon Ramsay character
the
now.
cliche, exactly.
Cliche, yeah, exactly.
The cliche.
How did that sit with your rebellious, hardcore nature? Someone shouting at you?
Very badly.
So did that militant nature of the head chef put you off working in kitchens?
Yeah. So I remember I said, okay, the only way to get out of this, I know I don't want to work in a kitchen. I don't want to be a chef, but I love to have a restaurant or something like that. So maybe I can learn more skills like marketing skills or
the business side
of the thing. And maybe I can do something about it because I already have all this expertise, know how to cook, but I don't like this kitchen environment. I don't like this macho thing about who has the biggest knife in the kitchen, you know. I didn't like that.
So what did you do?
So I said, okay, maybe I'm going to go to university. And let's see how they do it in Europe. Let's see how they do it. So I spoke to a guy who I knew who was studying in France, and he told me, yeah, you need to study this and this, like marketing, admin and this and that. So I said, okay, I will have to go to university. And it turns out that the only thing that was matching the studies in Europe was advertising. So I studied advertising for 4 years and I finished college there. But, you know, never expecting to work in advertising. Just, I said,
even
okay.
while you're doing the advertising course, you were still of the mentality, for 4 years, you were still of the mentality that I'm going to use this skill
having
to
a restaurant.
have a restaurant.
Yeah.
When did that change?
Well, a year before finishing college, I went to Barcelona. One of my sisters was living there. And I said, wow, I want to come here. I want to live here in Barcelona.
What was it about Barcelona that you found different to Buenos Aires?
It was relaxed. Buenos Aires, it's not relaxed at all. You always have to be
On your guard.
exactly.
Growing up in Buenos Aires, you have to be quite street savvy, right? Street smart.
Yeah. And
Barcelona, you could just go, oh, this is just amazing, but
amazing.
Relaxing.
Well, from what I've heard nowadays, Barcelona, it's quite difficult as well. It's not the Barcelona that I met 20 years ago. Back then it was very relaxed. And for me, it was my first time in Europe, my first time in Spain. And I said, I want this. I want to come here. I'm going to get a job here, maybe as a chef. Let's see how it goes. So I went back to Argentina, finished my studies, got my diploma, went back to Barcelona. I was 25. I got there 5 days or a week after I arrived. I got a job in a British pub in the port of Barcelona. The worst job ever in the kitchen. The kitchen was just filthy. The owners were very strange. They didn't care that it was just making money for them. It wasn't a passion for them.
No, it wasn't about putting out high quality food.
No, it was like just burgers, fish and chips. They work for the British tourists.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the Red Lion pub, the best English breakfast in all of Barcelona.
So it was,
not very satisfying for your...
Can you imagine from working in a hotel in Buenos Aires, a 5-star, and this other restaurant with this guy who was like
in a
top.
Fryer.
Exactly. Flipping burgers, fish and chips.
But what was Barcelona like outside of work for you? Were you still playing music?
Again, not music. I took my guitar with me. I was still playing just for myself, I rented a room in Barrio Gótico when I had free time, skateboarding, because you had the museum there in Barcelona. And that was, I remember when I got there, I used to watch these videos back in Buenos Aires about this spot.
I know the spot very well.
You know the spot very well.
Every skateboarder goes there.
It's like the Mecca,
of
skateboarding. And I was living 4 blocks away from that. So I was just skateboarding.
And starting to build a sense of community again?
Not really.
No.
Not really, because I had to work a lot, these shifts, because I was not only working for this pub, but I was also working for a hotel, a very good hotel called Arts. It's the best hotel in Barcelona. So I was working for the best hotel in Barcelona and the worst
restaurant.
Exactly.
Wow.
Because back then I remember I was like, okay, now I need to make money. If I want to open a restaurant here, or maybe I'm going to make some money here, and then after I'm going to go back to Argentina. So I need money. So I was working all the time. Were
you happy at this point?
I wouldn't say happy, but I was very determined to make some money. Maybe I'm going to go back. Maybe I'm going to stay here. I don't know. But I know what I need to do now is make some money. Of course, that lasted 6 months.
Okay. And then what happened, Boxi?
I just said, no, this again, I'm making the same mistakes again, no, I need to think.
But why? Did you realize that it wasn't giving you the fulfillment that you were hoping it was? Or was it just the same grind day after day after? A bit like when you were 14 going to that school, it just didn't feel...
Exactly. And I remember I realized that if I had a restaurant, even though I was expecting to be in a different position and maybe become a manager and an owner, and my life would be just waking up at 5 a.m., going to bed at 2 a.m.
It's an incredibly unsocial job, isn't it?
And it's all the problems that everyone wants to be, the top dog, the head honcho, this power thing. And I realized, okay, this is going to be like this everywhere. This is a worldwide thing. It's going to be like this. And if I want to become an owner or a manager or whatever, basically my life is going to be like that.
Yeah.
So I started to realize I have to change something really. Maybe I should start looking for something new.
And what did that look like for you? Because I mean, I think that hardcore attitude that you said of going, well, fuck it, I've done that, but I can make something else happen now. And that pursuit of, like we said, the things that make you happy. You're not going to sit in a situation that makes you unhappy.
No. At that point, I wasn't happy. I remember the last month in Barcelona, everything just collapsed. I wasn't happy.
So when you say it collapsed, what do you mean?
I said, what's the point of this? Me making money? What for? To have a restaurant, something that I don't even really like to have.
Yeah.
So what's the point? What am I doing here? Should I go back?
Did that leave you flat, or did that leave you excited about the next prospect?
Remember, I said, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but in case I have to go back to Buenos Aires, I'm going to travel a little bit before doing that. So
again, going back to that, you're going to get some enjoyment.
Exactly. Remember, I was working for 6 months, 2 jobs. I had some savings. So I said, I'm going to go travel for a bit. So I went to the Basque Country and I went to Portugal for, let's say, a month. Suddenly I realized that the savings that I have weren't enough because I was running out of money after a month traveling.
Yeah, I imagine that.
I think I was pretty naive, but back then, because I thought, yeah, I have all this money. Let's travel, let's go traveling.
But after a month, it doesn't get you as far as you think.
So I remember at one point I had something ridiculous like 60 euros left in my bank account, something like that.
And where were you at this point? Portugal?
Lisbon.
Oh, Lisbon in Portugal.
In Portugal. So I remember I said, okay, what can I do? And I was traveling with 2 Australian guys, Nick and Nathan, that I have met back in Barcelona. At some point, we ran out of money, the 3 of us. So they said, maybe instead of going back to Barcelona, we're going to go to the UK because it's a very easy way to make some money. You just get there, you get a job, doing whatever. And I said, okay, where can I go? And I remember I met this guy from Belfast. Basically, I saved his ass because he got attacked in Barcelona one night and he was bleeding on the street. So I took him home and I said, look, man, you can stay here. Take your time. Because they took his passport, all his money. But he was a very good musician. He was busking in Barcelona.
Oh, wow.
With his guitar. Luckily for him, when he got attacked, got mugged, they took everything, but they didn't take his guitar because he left his guitar at the hostel. So I invited this guy to my house and he stayed there for a few months. Basically,
oh, wow.
we became friends. And I said, yeah, maybe I'm going to give this guy a call.
And he's in Belfast?
Pavel, yeah. He's in Belfast. I didn't know anything about Belfast. I was very ignorant. Again, very naive. So I remember I called him. I said, look, would you mind if I come stay with you for a while? He said, no problem. Come. When are you coming? I said, probably tomorrow. There's a cheap flight. So I went there.
What were your impressions of Belfast when you arrived?
I got there on the very same night that the IRA gave up their guns. They handled their guns. So there were riots on the street, cars burning.
Welcome to Belfast. Wow, what an introduction to Northern Irish life.
To be honest, I wasn't really afraid because I'm from Buenos Aires. It's tough there as well. But I said, what's this? I was very ignorant about the conflict. I was
the situation,
very ignorant about the conflict. I remember I had a green cardigan. So when I got there, my friend took me to a pub. So I got in the pub and everyone started cheering. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I said, wow, these are very friendly people, you know? My friend told me, no, man, it's about the color of your jumper. Just don't wear any green or orange here. Just don't
Yeah.
do it because some people are going to be glad that you're wearing
picking
it.
a side.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So don't do it, especially you being from Argentina, about, the Falklands, the conflict. A lot of people.
Fresh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Still fresh. So don't do it. So I spent a few months there living in Belfast, got a job in the Apollo call center.
So call center, so completely different.
Call center life, working for BT, trying to win customers.
How was that?
Horrible.
I can imagine.
Horrible. The lowest point of my life. It was just horrible.
From someone who's had quite the pursuit of things you enjoy, to be working in a call center in Belfast doesn't sound hugely fun.
Yeah, it wasn't just a call center. It was the call center. I think it's the biggest call center in UK or probably Europe. It's like the Matrix.
Really?
It didn't end. It was just people on the screen calling, like thousands of people. It was a factory.
Yeah. The complete opposite of what you've strived for. Like you say, you don't want to be in those.
That was my lowest point. I said, okay.
But again, a resilience where you needs must. I'm in a different country. I don't know what the situation is.
I had to do it.
Money.
I had to do it. I remember I rented the cheapest room in Belfast. You can imagine how that was. It was depressing, the most depressing thing that I've ever experienced. And it was just a depressing life. And it lasted 6 months and it felt like 60 years.
Really?
Really.
So what was the catalyst that made you get out of that situation? Just pure unhappiness?
Pure unhappiness. Again, I was in an environment that I knew this guy, Pablo, who was a very good friend, and I made friends with his friends.
He was a musician. Was there any music at this point?
Not at all.
Just depressing.
I didn't even bring my guitar with me. I left it with my sister in Barcelona. I just had a backpack with a sleeping bag and nothing else.
Wow.
And 200 CDs. I took my CDs with me, my CD player. So I was still listening to a lot of music.
Did music help you get through that depressing time in Belfast? Filling your time?
I remember the soundtrack of my Belfast period was Joy Division, because I remember I knew, wow, okay, now I know why these guys are making this music. Now I understand. One thing is listening to it in Buenos Aires and you say, wow, this music, why did they use this compression or this distortion? And then you are living there in this, of course, Belfast is not Manchester, but you have this, it's the same environment basically. Rainy,
grey,
gloomy. Sorry, people in Belfast, I don't want to call your city depressing, but even my friends there were saying to me, what are you doing here? What exactly are you doing here? Because we have to be here. You're from Buenos Aires, you were living in Spain. What you doing here, man? But again, I was broke. I had to make some money to get out of there. Yeah. So that took me 6 months.
Of working in the call center.
And I didn't know what to do. I said, okay, maybe I'm going to go back to Buenos Aires. I know I've lost. So this is me admitting that
Belfast has defeated you.
Exactly. Belfast is one city that I really respect in that way. It really broke me down. It was like humbling.
So what's next after Belfast? Belfast has beaten you. So what was the decision?
Belfast was beating the hell out of me, not just beating me. I don't even know what to do now, because I know I don't want to work in a kitchen. I don't think I want to go back to Argentina, but I was absolutely lost.
Difficult time for you then.
Very difficult time. I was probably 26. And at this point, I was like, okay, I don't even have money to go back to Argentina. So where would I be starting from? Like, I don't even have anything. When I left Barcelona, I just got rid of everything. I just kept my CDs with me and the backpack. And my guitar was there back in Barcelona with my sister. That's all I had at this point.
So that was the only thing you were bothered about keeping, just your music, your guitar, and then everything else is...
When I decided to travel, I said, okay, there's no looking back, so get rid of everything. So at this point, I was like questioning my decisions. I said, man, I think you really messed up. So what are you going to do now? My friend in Belfast told me, I think you should go to Granada. I remember exactly the moment he told me.
Did he give you a reason though?
He told me this story. I met a girl in Granada. I was busking in the street of Granada because you're allowed to busk there. So I was playing and I met this girl and she took me to a water spring and everything was magical and it was the best day in my life.
And he really sold you the
He
dream.
really sold me the dream. And it wasn't about the girl. It was about the music. He told me everything there's very cheap. It's very affordable and the food is great. And he was telling me that was the best thing in my life, he told me. He said, there are some cheap flights from here. You should go. So I checked the flights and yeah, back then it was 10 euros.
Wow.
You know, something. I said, okay, yeah, let's give it a go. I said goodbye to Belfast and went to Granada.
So you found yourself in Granada on the recommendation of your friend in Belfast. He describes it as idyllic, water springs and music on every street corner and beautiful cheap food. Yeah. Did you find that? I mean, the contrast from Belfast, I'm sure, is going to be huge, but was it as idyllic as he said?
180 degrees.
Really?
Was exactly the opposite of Belfast. When I got to Granada, it started very complicated because I was staying in a hostel in exchange for me doing beds and, you know, helping out.
You did little bits of work for the hostel.
So I contacted them and said, yeah, sure, don't worry. You can come anytime. You will work for us. We'll give you free stay, basically. But it got quite complicated at some point because from Belfast, I didn't go to Granada. I went back to Barcelona to pick up my guitar. So I got stuck there for a week because I haven't seen my sister in a few months. So I spent some time with her.
See.
I sent an email saying to the hostel, look, instead of being there on next Monday, I'm going to be there in 10 days, something like that. And they didn't reply. So I said, well, okay, I'll just go there. And finally, I got there to Granada, went to the hostel, and they told me, look, man, we haven't heard from you. We didn't receive that email that you're saying that you send us. There's nothing we can do about it. Like,
so the job wasn't available anymore?
Not only the job, not even the bed was available.
So what did you do?
So I was there in the street and I met this lady and she told me, what you doing here? And I was there with a friend as well. And she told us, look, do you have a place to stay? I said, no. Basically, we fucked up. So what? Now we don't know what we're going to do because we didn't have much money neither. She told us, I have a cave. So you can come to my cave. It has like 4 bedrooms there. And you look like good people. And this was nighttime already.
So a lady you've just met has told you that she's got a cave that you can serve. And here we come back to the first question.
Because we were on the cathedral and there was some people busking. They were playing music. So we were just listening to music there. And this lady approached us and said, where are you from? Yeah, we're from Buenos Aires, but we got this problem. And she said, okay, you want to come to my cave?
What did you think when she said, I've got a cave?
She's crazy. Cave? What do you mean a cave? So But at this point, I didn't have an option, you know? So
you took the lady up on her offer of going to a cave
Let's
in the
go.
middle of the night.
Let's go.
So what's the cave like when you arrive?
To get to the cave, you had to walk through the Albaicin quarter, and the streets there are very, very narrow and stone. It's like a labyrinth, you know? So she took us through the Albaicin, and we finally got to this place called Sacromonte, which are like mountains. And suddenly, you know, we were crossing a stream. I remember my feet being all wet. I said, look, man, again, you know, this is not going well. Probably we're going to get mugged. What were we thinking?
Okay.
So we finally got to the middle of nowhere because there was no electricity, no lights there. Basically, there was pitch black. And suddenly she opens a door on the mountain. When she opens the door, there was this magnificent cave, all white inside with candles and like a hobbit house. Like, what the hell is that? And she explained to us, you know, some friends of mine are staying here, but they went back to Chile and they asked me to take care of the cave. So yeah, I have 4 bedrooms and I really don't want to be on my own here. I can tell you're good people, so you can stay here and we can protect each other.
So this takes us to you living in a cave, Boxi.
Yeah. So I was living in a cave for a few months.
And what's life like in
months.
Granada for you? Because music now becomes much more of a thing, right?
So the first few weeks, I was in shock. From Belfast to Granada, this was an absolute shock for me.
Like you say, a 180-degree difference.
180.
How are you spending your days in?
Waking up in the cave, there was a spring there that you can get some water from the mountains, filling the bottles, making some tea, and then going back to the city and just wandering around, just absorbing everything. And when I mean absorbing everything there was musicians busking, playing on the streets everywhere, all the time.
It was quite famous.
It was
for
quite
music
famous. I
and-
didn't, again, very ignorant about it. I didn't know. Even Joe Strummer from The Clash was living there. His dream was having a hardware store in Granada.
It's a mad dream, isn't it, for someone like Joe Strummer?
Yeah, but he was living there.
So music was just, you were
Everywhere.
surrounded.
Music was everywhere, and it was a dream.
Were you slowly getting that creative element back, the music? Because you said after being in Belfast, you were probably quite depressed, and it was
Quite
just...
depressed. I think I was absorbing and learning because these musicians were mostly acoustic musicians. This wasn't about distortion. This was about skills.
Okay.
Granada it was pretty famous because to live there was very cheap. Food there was very cheap. With every drink that you had in a bar, you got a free tapa, and the tapa was a big tapa. So if you had, let's say, 2 beers for €2, not only you had 2 beers, but you can only have a lunch or dinner.
The tapas feeds
So
you with the 2 beers that
all
you buy.
it takes was €4 a day
Wow.
to survive. Can you imagine? It was
Not really.
crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So I was still in shock. Like, the word that we should have in mind is shock, being in shock. Everything was different. The musicians were acoustic musicians, and they were busking on the street because they were learning from each other. Let's say a sitar player was playing with a didgeridoo player and a darbuka player, and then the darbuka player was playing with the cajon player, and they were people very interested in learning different styles of music.
So all of these buskers and musicians were getting different inputs from each other's skills and learning and evolving and creating together, I guess.
And the way to survive was busking, because all you needed was a room. Back then, I remember it was not even 100 euros for a room a month. And then you needed the 4 euros a day to survive. So if you busk there, you get like very decent money from busking.
Yeah.
Because Granada, it was a very touristic city. Nowadays, it's gentrified and everything. It's
Very different.
very different. But back then, it was like the perfect combination of tourists and people living there. It was like the right ingredients.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's different. So for me, not only was the shock of the city and the caves and everything, was these musicians, these acoustic musicians, that they are really want to develop their techniques and their knowledge. And it was about learning, really.
Did that rub off on you in the sense that, okay, maybe I need to expand my 3-chord repertoire?
Exactly. Totally. I said, wow. But it's not only about rock or hardcore, because at this time I wasn't only listening to hardcore. I listened to a lot of rock and electronic music, every type of music. But this new thing, acoustic music, or some people, they call it world music, for me it was different.
New experience. Hearing sitars and, as you say, all
sitars,
these different instruments.
And nays, the flute. There were a lot of Sufis living there. So Sufi music, flamenco music, everyone was bringing their music from their countries to Granada. So
this melting
a lot
pot
of Balkan music and gypsy jazz, manouche style, guitar players. And to me, it was all new. I didn't even know this music.
So culturally, you're hearing all these new sounds, these instruments, these things of what music can be.
And all the possibilities, and learning from another people.
And were you actively with your guitar trying to learn different things?
No, not with my guitar. I said, no. Again, I know my limitations, But I remember I said, this instrument that I saw in Barcelona, this instrument called hung, it was like percussion with melody, like a steel drum.
An inverted steel
drum.
I mean, people would probably know them now as a hand pan, would they?
I said, I'm very interested in that. I'll give it a go. So I got one of those, and it all started there. I started playing hung. Nowadays it's called handpan, but
your mission to get one of those was quite an exciting one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Again, another little adventure.
Yeah, it was an adventure. Again, I was very lucky because I remember I called the makers. The makers were a couple that live in Switzerland. They invented the instrument in the year 2000. I got the instrument in 2005, but for the first 5 years, they just produced a few instruments a year, maybe 100 a year. So they were 500 instruments in the world. I called them and said, I love your instrument. Can I buy one? Yeah, but we don't ship anymore because they got damaged. So you have to come to Switzerland. It's the only way.
So how does that work when you're in Granada living off €4 a day?
I made my maths and I said, look, my savings were like 1,200 euros that I saved from Belfast. So.
And how much was one of these instruments at the time?
500.
So instantly you take 500 off that.
Yeah. And I said, okay, let's go.
700 euros.
Let's go to Switzerland.
And how do you get?
I took the bus because it was the cheapest way to get there. I think it was 80 euros to get to Bern and 80 euros back. But when I got to Switzerland, I decided I wanted 2 of those instruments in different scales. One was an Arabic scale and the other one was a D minor scale. So I said, can you sell 2 for me? And said, we don't usually do it, but since you're coming from Spain, yeah, okay. So I got 2 of them, but I ended up with less than 100 euros.
So you're not getting back to it.
I'm not getting back. I didn't have enough money to get back to Granada. So I called my sister in Barcelona. I said, do you know anyone living in Paris? Because I'm in Switzerland. I always want to go to Paris. And say, yeah, I have a friend there. You can go to her house. And so my sister sent an email to her saying, look, my brother is in Switzerland. Basically, he's stranded there. Can he come to your house? Don't worry, because he's got this instrument. He's going to busk there. He's going to make some money and then go back to Granada. So that's what I did. I went to her house, spent 10 days there. She told me, look, I spend most of the time with my boyfriend, his house. So take this apartment. You can stay here. I said, yeah, okay.
Wow.
Do it. Here are the keys.
Brilliant.
An apartment in Paris.
And at this point, had you had much experience? You've only just bought these instruments.
I just bought it. I tried it before because a guy that I knew had one.
Oh, I see. You had a...
So I had a go at it,
Yeah.
I had a little go and said, yeah, I think I can. It's difficult, but I think I can try. So basically, I spent all my learning was in Paris, in France, just
on the street.
on the street, playing.
But they make an absolutely beautiful sound, don't they, these handpans? And it's quite hypnotic. I remember I was on a job in Europe and I heard this sound.
Yeah.
And I think I was in Vienna or something like that. And I walked around this corner and there was these two guys playing them and I was mesmerized. Stunning.
That's what everyone feels the first time they see a handpan and they hear a handpan. Nowadays, it's more people will.
We've had 20
it,
years of
25 years.
Yeah.
So now it's just an instrument.
But when you were busking on the streets of Paris, were you getting that reaction? Wow,
Yeah,
what is that sound?
Wow, what's that sound? What is it? Where's the amplifier? There's no amplifier. It's acoustic. What do you mean it's acoustic? Where's the trick? Because it's a steel drum, but it's not the sound of a steel drum. Steel drum, it's more loud. And
yeah, it's much softer. And
this works with harmonics, works differently.
Yeah, it's a beautiful instrument. Presumably that sound, that novelty of that new sound, and you learning on the streets, you earned enough to get yourself some money to...
I remember it only took a week to get the money to go back to Spain.
Wow.
So I say, okay, I think this is going to work out for me. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go back to Granada. So I started a new life, with the hang, busking mornings and afternoons and meeting a lot of people. Everyone wanted to play with me, not with me, with the instrument, of course, because I always knew that it wasn't about the music that I was creating, really. It was more about the instrument. The instrument was
the attraction,
the
sound.
It was a very powerful thing back then.
But you'd spotted that early on and gone to all that effort to get the instruments.
I spotted that, exactly. But can you imagine, if I played the guitar, no one of these guys would like to play with me.
Not with
they would say,
chords.
Go home, learn some chords, go back in a few years and we'll play together.
Yeah.
But with this instrument was like a key to play with the best musicians because everyone wanted to play with the instrument.
And presumably wanted to hear the sound of their instrument alongside the handpan or the hung.
Not only that, they were intrigued. It was a new thing. This thing came from out of nowhere. And the whole story behind the instrument, these people in Switzerland, only 2 people make them in the world. When they ask for instrument, they ask you this question about, what do you want our instrument? What are you going to do with it?
What are your intentions?
What are your intentions? So when I got the instrument, soon after that, the waiting list went to 5 years. If you wanted to buy one, you had to wait 5 years. For me, it was just in time because the first generation of hangs, it was more like a steel drum. And the second generations, the one I got, I was one of the first or having the second generation, that it was more, the sound was more defined and more harmonic. They introduced this term, they call it was a sound sculpture.
Sculpture, okay.
It wasn't an instrument. They didn't want musicians to play it.
Interesting.
They want just regular people to have a go, and it was a new way to approach music, of you making music without being a musician. They weren't interested in selling the instrument to musicians. Like, they got all these letters from all the best percussionists in the world saying, I want to hang, I'm going to have, please. And they just passed.
Wow.
So it was a new approach. So for me, having that instrument, it really opened not many doors, all of them. Because again, if I was playing a guitar, no one would want to play with me. Only the hardcore players, the outcasts.
I understand
the
now
outsiders.
The instrument opened the doors, not necessarily your skill of playing that instrument. And obviously that will develop.
Not my skill. Of course, not my skill. It was the instrument.
I don't know about, of course, not your skill, because obviously you will develop that skill as the more you play.
Yeah, but
that sound, like you say, was such a novelty at the time.
Matt, I played instrument for 20 years almost, and I know back then it wasn't my skills, definitely. That's one thing I know 100% because
I understand what you're saying.
I knew a lot of very good music. I was playing on the street, and musicians in Granada, they said, look, I'm having Enrique Morentes at the phone. Enrique Morentes was like a flamenco singer. He played experimental flamenco. He played with Sonic Youth. He's got an experimental album with Lagartija Nick called Omega, the album. And this guy was like, look, you have Enrique Morentes at the phone. He wants to record with you. For me, it was like, what? What's this?
So these opportunities were coming up.
Yeah, I was playing in Granada, and I met a producer from Belgium, a very, very good musician called Quentin Duchardin. And he said, look, if you ever come to Belgium, just give me a call. I have a studio. We can make something. I said, not if ever. When? When is it good for you? 2 weeks. So I went to Belgium, recorded an album with them. And next year, another album. We tour Belgium, 40 gigs in a month, something crazy, playing in these jazz clubs. Me playing with jazz musicians, you know? We had a band with a trumpet player.
You've come a long way from your 3 chords very fast with
the trumpet player was from the school. Like, his teacher was playing with Chet Baker. So Chet Baker was one of my idols.
So when you say that this instrument opened doors, it really did open doors.
Really, really.
Wow.
It really, really.
So how many albums have you worked on?
I recorded 2 albums in Belgium, and then I had another band in Ibiza, in Spain, for the summer to play in clubs. It was hung and electronic music.
Oh, nice.
With a French guy and a didgeridoo player from India. Yeah. The openings.
Yeah.
The opening.
Opening parties in Ibiza.
Opening parties. They just hire us to play 10 minutes.
Really?
Which we're going to open the doors, and you're going to be playing there until the DJ starts. So it's 10 minutes. When we fill the room, you're going to play there. And we were playing the markets there. They were called the hippie markets.
Yeah, in Escanar.
In Escanar, you know. So we were playing all the markets. I spent a few summers there in Ibiza playing.
But it's this instrument which is obviously opening these doors. But it's now, when you're back in Granada, you're busking in the morning, you're busking in the evening. Yeah. But then in the daytime, this is where you've got this free time developing, but you're so engrossed in the music that you need some form of escape, right?
That's when Boxi Trixi was born.
Talk to me about the Boxi Trixi name. Where does that come from?
My dad used to call me Boxi Trixi when I was a kid because he said I was a box full of tricks.
I love that. Boxi Trixi.
Boxi Trixi.
And that is kind of, through your story,
Yeah.
you are a box
Yeah.
of tricks, a multiple box of tricks.
Yeah.
But talk to you about that free time that you were developing and what you were doing.
So
how Boxi developed.
Yeah. So I was busking with the hang. I was very disciplined about it. I don't know if it was this thing now. Nowadays, people, they call it the imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
we talk about that a lot.
Okay.
As creatives, artists, imposter syndrome.
Yeah. I don't know if it was about that, but again, I remember I said, look, this is a huge opportunity because you can make your living out of music. If you would be playing another instrument, you'd be starving to death. Being aware of that really kept me ground to earth, like...
Yeah, your feet on the floor.
Exactly. Because probably at some other point in my life, I would say just, wow, now I'm a musician. I'm playing with jazz musicians and I'm a musician now. I know I always kept my feet on the floor. I said, look, there's a very good opportunity here. Now you have the chance to become what they call a musician and make your living out of...
You didn't consider yourself a musician?
No, I wasn't. And I'm not a musician. It takes a lot more to be a musician.
But you'd found this discipline of...
I bet I had the discipline.
Yes.
I had one of the ingredients to be a musician. It wasn't talent. I had some talent, but it was very raw. But what I had was a lot of discipline.
And consistency.
And I was very humble and said, here's my opportunity. And I'm going to give my best.
And again, is that about you realizing the fact that, okay, I don't consider myself a musician, but I am making a living from doing something that I enjoy every day. So I'm going to make sure I can keep doing this.
I was lucky. What I was feeling, it was like, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that I don't have to go back to kitchen work or call center work, or I'm just so lucky I can do this. Yeah. And people like it. And I'm gonna...
Do you think it is luck? Because you sought out these opportunities and you were aware, you heard this instrument, you were like, oh, is that some foresight of...
I think luck,
I struggle with luck because I think you've made decisions in your life that have got you to the point.
Yeah, but again, luck is a big factor in life, I think. You can be disciplined, you can be talented, have a great technique. You know how many artists that I know that they are great in every way, great technique, great discipline, everything, but they have to do something else and they're not happy, they're always struggling. So luck, I think it's a big factor. Maybe luck is getting to realize and putting all the things together to connect things and taking advantage of opportunities. But at the same time, luck, it's an ingredient, it's a huge ingredient. It's not about talent.
But the discipline that this gave you, your realization that you had to be disciplined and you treated it almost like a job. It was, I busk in the morning, I busk in the evening. And then in the interim, going back to what we say, Boxi Trixi was born.
Because in the meantime, I had to take some rest. Hung at the beginning, it's very hard because you're banging metal with your hands. So for the first year, your hands bleed, your hands hurt a lot, your back, it's in a lot of pain. So you had to take some breaks.
You needed that break for your body, the thing. So what are you doing with that time that you're trying to rest and get away from that intense nature of playing the handpan, your hands bleeding and your backache? This is where Boxi Trixi was born, as we've already discussed,
because in all my travels, I always kept a sketchbook with me just for doodling and scribbling. And I always had one. It always relaxed me. So the rooms I rented in Granada, we never had a TV, so you had to do something. And my something was doing that, just drawing, painting a little bit.
What sort of stuff are you drawing and painting at this point? Do you remember?
Basically, the same that I'm painting, not far from the same that I'm doing here, just these figures.
And is that an influence of, as we say, the living in the cave, being surrounded by this quote-unquote world music, these different ethnicities, influences?
Yeah.
It's not that mainstream, everyone's talking about TV and pop culture. You're immersed in this more folky world, artisan sort of environment.
I always was attracted to just one image, one powerful image, like not human, but these figures, Probably
does that go back to the skateboarding?
That goes back to the skateboarding and a lot of. I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather gave me these figurines from Tiahuanaco in Bolivia.
Okay, which are gonna, if people look at your work, are gonna have similarities.
Yeah, and
visually.
I was about around 12 when he gave me this. They were very precious for him. So I guess it was his way to say,
I'm passing this on to you, this visual idea, these characters, this history.
Yeah. I guess I was the only one in the family who respected that and was attracted to this pottery and figurines
ceramics and creativity almost.
No one in the family, everyone in the family was like, what's this? Voodoo things. What are they? What are they? This. Everyone was like, do you want them? No, they are too scary. And I was like, yeah, I'll take them. I love them.
I mean, as I say, looking at your characters, they are very much that South American, Aztec.
Yeah.
How would you describe them?
I thought a lot about this. I like to think about them as power figures. I think in Congo, they have these figures as well.
Like a sort of spirit animal, spirit?
No, not really. It's an image that you can be devoted to, and you can ask this image for favors and to accomplish things. Or back in the day, people had this, they pray to Saint Mary.
Oh, specific saints within religions.
With an image, with an image. Please, Saint Mary, do this for me, do that for me, help me in this way.
But with these sorts of things, would it have been more like we pray for rain for the harvest? Those sorts of more tribal gods?
Yeah, but I'm not part of the tribe. I'm just creating my own world. And what I would love to think is that people that have a piece of my work, it works in that way for them. It's more like a totem,
I see, yeah, like those original little statues from Bolivia.
Yeah, like a power figure. The interesting thing about art, in my opinion, it's not about it matches your sofa. It's not a decorative thing. It's you're gonna spend maybe your whole life surrounded by this piece, and this piece is gonna be with you through thick and thin. As I say,
the connection has to be there,
and probably at some point you won't be in this world, but this will. It's something very powerful for me, but in a different way that artists approach. That they work as a precious thing, but in more decorative way. And this is an art piece, and for me, it's more about developing a relationship with the work, with the artwork. Again, as a totemic.
Yeah, you hope that the viewer connects with whatever character is that you're creating.
Yeah.
So was this just a flow state thing, just to distract your mind when you were sketching between busking sessions?
Yeah. It started like that. After that, when I was traveling, one of the objects that I got, I forgot to mention, was a reflex camera. So I was taking pictures of, at the beginning of the cities, because me coming from Buenos Aires to Europe was like, wow, everything's new. Let's take a picture of the city. But soon after, I realized I was taking pictures of the graffitis and the street art instead of the buildings and the monuments. I was taking pictures of those things.
So again, those early influences of street art.
As an spectator. I was just taking pictures of it. When I got to Granada, Granada was famous not only for music, but for street art, because it was allowed, it was legal. As long as the owner agreed for you to paint on his wall and there was no conflict, you were allowed to do it. So
you were getting these inputs and influences from all over.
From all over. I was hanging out not only with musicians, but at some point I met a guy called Ocean, and he had this tag, this figure everywhere in Granada, everywhere. And one night we were having a music jam in my house, and some guy told me Ocean is coming because he's a rapper as well, and I invited him to the jam. I said, yeah, great. So I met this guy, and he had a look at my sketchbook, and he told me, wow, this is great. Did you think about doing this on the street? I said, yeah, I've been doing it for the past year. I've been pasting these very small paste tabs, from the sketchbook. I used to.
Oh, you ripped it out from the sketchbook?
Yeah, I ripped it out and just paste them. And he told me, oh, yeah, I've seen your work, but maybe you should paint or do some like bigger paste tabs. And he invited me to paint a mural, and it was my first mural. So he really encouraged me to do it. And from that day, I never stopped doing it. Yeah. It was again from 0 to 100 in one day, as everything I do.
And were you still balancing the music and the art at the same time?
Yeah. Still playing every day.
Really pursuing those things that you love.
Well, I stopped playing probably 5 years ago. I mean, I still play, but a couple of times during the week, and it's not a professional thing anymore. Mm-hmm. But for more than 15 years, I was playing every day of my life.
Wow.
Non-stop.
And then drawing.
And then drawing and doing paste tabs. But at some point, the music stopped.
Why? Just because you felt more passion for the art now, or?
Yeah. I think painting, it's something that I can, if I have the time, I can do it all the time. It'll be non-stop.
Yeah.
And for music, maybe me having those limitations, being a limited musician, not having the theory or whatever you want to call it, I can play for a few hours a day, but not all day because I'm limited. I get bored.
Does it then feel like that repetitive thing of, because I only know this on the hung, this is what I can do, and then it stops? Whereas
this is what I can do. And I think if you want to take it to a different level, that when you have to develop your technique, and I'm not interested in that. Mm-hmm. I tried to study it a couple of times, percussion, to become a better hung player, but it just didn't feel right.
It didn't hit those levels.
No, I only wanted to play what I wanted to play, like the way I did it, but I didn't want to develop the technique. I guess I always knew at some point this is gonna end up killing me, because I'm my worst enemy at the same time. Not wanting to develop your technique, and you're gonna reach to a point where that's it. You won't be able to grow.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to decide whether to quit or keep going. If you want to keep going, you'll have to learn more. But I wasn't really interested.
Mm-hmm. And it feels like the art was something where you could grow, you could expand. It was only limited by your imagination, presumably.
Yeah. But not in a way that I'm developing my technique. It just comes, all the time. With music, it's different. It doesn't come all the time. My brain, it's not thinking in terms of, wow, I have this song in my head. No.
But does it in terms of the art?
Yeah.
So it feels much more pure, that it's just like, I just let myself.
That's why I quit music.
Right.
Because it became a job and I got bored.
So how do we get from Spain to England?
After busking and playing all around Europe for 15 years, I went back to Argentina, and I met my partner there. She's from Birmingham. And at some point, we just wanted to leave the country again. There was a lot of problems there.
What was she doing there? Just a tourist, or was she working?
No, she was working. She was an English teacher.
Okay.
But so we decided to go. At this time, again, I was part of a group called BA Paste Up in Buenos Aires. When I got there, I started doing paste ups on the street, the same things I was doing in my travels and in Spain. There were a few people involved in the paste up scene back then, probably 10 people. 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago. BA Paste Up, it's turning 10 years.
Wow.
In 2025. So we realized, wow, maybe we can do something, because the paste up, you do a paste up, and after that, it's like a conversation that starts growing. Another paste up artist comes and it puts another paste up next to you, and another one, and comes another one, and you create eventually a mural. So with these guys, we are 5 in the group. We said, look, why don't we make a group? Instead of doing this thing separately, we can get together and make a group.
A community again.
A community. But this turned out to be the first paste up group in the world, let's say.
Wow.
So we created BA Paste Up, and that was a hit. So we created the group, and a month after, we were already doing commissions.
Wow.
And they were calling us for festivals, and can you do a mural for our Lollapalooza festival? Yeah. So we started not only doing it on the street, but doing commissions.
So once again, your passion was paying your way without even making a plan of that, really.
No, this time with BA Paste Up, I must admit that it was very well planned.
Oh, okay.
Because when we met with the rest of the team, 4 other members of the team, we noticed that we were very different personalities, but we took our thing very seriously. It wasn't about a hobby. We really wanted to make something different and take paste up to a different level.
That hardcore attitude taken into paste up.
As soon as we met each other, say, look, why don't we start doing like big murals instead of paste up here and there, and let's make big murals with a lot of paper. We are 5. Okay, so you bring your stuff, I'll bring my stuff. And that had a real impact. We were in the front cover of the magazines, and this is where the selfies started. So everyone was like taking selfies of them
against the murals.
Murals. Everything just started there. From, again, in a month time, everyone was asking, can you do a mural? Can you make a mural?
Similar to you and the handpan again. It was like you found the novelty niche item.
But I think this time I knew what I was doing. With the handpan was more like, okay, I'll give it a go, but I know I'm still learning. And with paste up, I had already been doing it for 10 years before being part of BA Paste Up. So I've been doing paste up for 20 years now.
So when you and your partner decide to move away from BA, how does that affect the group? How does that affect the dynamic?
It affected in a way that, of course, I'm not there to make the murals with them. But the good thing about paste ups, it's paper. You can send them in the post. So they send their stuff here, and I send my stuff there.
So yeah, like an art exchange across.
An art exchange, but I'm still part of BA Paste Up. And BA Paste Up, it's part of Birmingham Paste Up. So
how long was it when you got to the UK that you started doing paste ups here?
I started at the same time I got here. It never stopped. Never stopped.
And now, how many cities across the world do you think you've got your paste ups in?
I don't know.
Because this exchange works with lots of other groups, doesn't it?
Yeah. I don't know, but a lot.
Which is amazing.
And nowadays you have festivals as well, paste up festivals and different things. But It never stopped. When I got here, it was just a branch of BA Paste in Birmingham.
Yeah.
I have bags of paper from the rest of the BA Paste members. And the last time I went to Argentina, I brought 15 kilos of paper.
Really? So again, but just something you just love doing.
I love it. I love it.
Which I think is kind of I think people will cotton on to the fact that that's what it is. And I'm sure I've said it before. Your life, Boxi, seems to have been a pursuit of happiness, a pursuit of things that bring you joy. It's not commercial gain. It doesn't matter about any of that. It's just about joy.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing for me is, even after hearing your story, you still don't consider yourself an artist, a musician. You wouldn't put yourself into one of those boxes.
No,
Sorry, excuse the pun, Boxi. I've just realized what I did there.
No. I think that's not my job to do that, to put that label. But I don't mind to be considered an artist, but I won't be the one saying it.
How do you see yourself then?
An enthusiast
of life?
No.
Of anything that an enthusiast of anything that makes you happy?
Yeah, and not many things make me happy. Not many things, but
say more. You sounded very
no. That's the truth. It's not like I consider myself a happy person, but not many things make me happy. No.
Okay. What are the things that make you truly happy?
Being with my family, with my partner and my son, cooking at home, not as a job, listening to music, painting, doing paste ups. And I think that's pretty much it.
So really, you fill your life with only the things that make you happy.
Yeah, but that's my life. I'm a very simple person, and I don't do much, but I do what I like to do.
Quite prolifically. It's not like I'll create one picture and then I'll do something else.
I think if you like to do something, you have to try to do it all the time, or as much as you can. Try to find something that you like and try to, keep doing it.
Out of all of the things that you've done, though, I mean, you've recorded multiple albums, paste ups all over the world, living in caves, umpteen experiences.
Yeah.
Would you say you've led a happy life? And is that of your making?
Yeah. But there was a lot of, I struggled a lot. It didn't come easy.
When you said that, there's a balance of pain that comes with that happiness.
Of course.
Can you talk a little bit on that?
I mean, I think that in order to do something, you have to sacrifice a lot.
Do you feel like you've sacrificed?
A lot. What? I don't know. But, I sacrificed a lot in terms of, it wasn't easy. Maybe people are listening to this and say, wow, this guy. That's why I'm saying there was a lot of luck involved. And that luck really helped me through this whole thing. If it wasn't for the luck, I don't know what would have happened to me.
But what if that luck is a result? I don't know, maybe your power animals are watching over you.
I don't know, and I think I would never know, because the life that I live, it's just something that there's no parallel world and another life that could have been, should have been. I don't know. This is the life that I live. I know I did well. I'm a happy guy in terms of, but I don't think happy, it's a term that we should use. I think happiness is another thing.
Happiness is a byproduct of other things, isn't it? It's a result.
Yeah, I remember once I was busking in Granada outside the Alhambra, and I met this Australian guy. He was probably in late 70s. He approached me, I was playing, he fell in love with the instrument, and we had a chat, and I said, may I ask you something? You lived a lot, you seem like you travel a lot, you seem like you did well. So what's the most important thing in life? And he told me, I think the most important thing in life is having peace of mind. And I think I don't seek for happiness. I'm not looking for happiness. I'm looking for peace of mind. I think
Right.
if you are in peace, you are able to create things. I'm a person, when I'm not feeling well, I'm not able to come to the studio and paint. Some artists, they say, yeah, I can create from pain. And when I'm struggling and I'm in pain, I paint in a different, no, I can't. I have to be okay.
Interesting.
I have to be okay. If
I see that. I do see artists in, a lot of some of the greatest art can come from grief, melancholy, pain.
That's why one of the reasons I'm not an artist, maybe. You see?
Oh, that's tricky.
So
Yeah.
I don't, it's not me. If I'm not okay, I'm not able to come to the studio and create. I have to be in peace. My mind has to be in peace. Once I have peace in my mind, I'm able to do other things. But it's nothing to do with happiness and seeking for happiness, or no, it's something that people ask me, why do you do it? I have no idea. It makes me happy. But I couldn't say why do you do it? I don't know.
But like we've said, I feel like you've led a life that is dominated by the pursuit of happiness. And I think that is an idyllic idea for a lot of people, but very hard to achieve due to sometimes the real world pressures that we all go through.
Yeah. But again, it's not pursuing happiness, it's pursuing peace.
Pursuing peace.
To be in peace with yourself. If I wouldn't be doing this today, painting, and I know that I wouldn't be in peace. My mind would be troubled. I would be miserable. And if you're miserable, you're making the world that surrounds you miserable as well. If you're not in peace, people that surrounds you are not in peace because you're not in peace. No, you're toxic, basically. You're this thing that vibrates in a way that it's not okay.
Energy.
It's energy. It's energy.
And I think that harkens back to some of these power animals. I feel that sort of...
Yeah, that's why I was telling you about they are power figures. I think they have this energy, and some people, they connect with one image and they don't connect with another one. But every collector that bought something from me, they tell me that I have a connection with this thing, with this art.
I think that's important with all art. I don't think you buy art unless, don't get me wrong, people do buy art for investment purposes, but I think art, it's important to have that connection. This is something most people will maybe live with for the rest of their lives and will still be here when they're gone.
Yeah. So many possibilities. Maybe they are in love with the piece, and maybe in 5 years, they're gonna just chuck it in the bin. You never know.
And that doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't matter to me. To me, the only thing that matters is that I'm able to do it. I can do it. I get away with it. It makes me happy. You want to call it that? Gives me peace. It's something that it's like, I guess I don't meditate, but I guess it's what people get from meditation, or I don't know.
But it goes back to that flow state that we were talking about when you're creating.
Yeah, that's all I care about. It's like I'm into this flow of energy, and it's not even about the final result. It's about...
It's the journey.
It's the journey. My journey. Not even what the collector think about my work, or if it's good, bad, ugly, beautiful. That's up to you. You're gonna hang this thing on your wall. I care about producing it and the journey that
you're not wrapped up in, is this going to sell? Is this the right, like you said, a decorative tone that's going to match someone's living room? It's about creating.
At all. And I keep creating. I have hundreds of pieces here,
It feels a bit disingenuous now to talk about finances and survival and things like that after such a beautiful story of finding peace and doing things that provide you with happiness. But I'm sure there'll be some people sat here wondering, well, that's great, but how does he survive?
That's what I ask myself sometimes. But again, that's when sacrifice comes and knocks on your door. For example, I don't go out. I'm very lucky to have a partner that understands this. And she doesn't ask to be, let's go out for a fancy dinner, or let's go out for...
Well, let's face it, with your culinary skills, you can probably cook better than most.
Exactly. If I want to do it, I'll do it myself.
You go and get some beautiful produce and cook something delicious.
So I think I was clever in a way of, from early stage, detecting what I really like to do in life and try to do it myself, so I don't have to depend on the others to do it for me. So, but again, I'm very lucky to have a partner that can understand this. That there's
Does she bring you peace, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of good humor. Like,
so that's what families should do. Peace and joy, right?
Yeah. So we agree that the best thing that I created, it's my family. And we are just happy to spend time together. Maybe it's not going to be about the travelings or the holidays but we spend a lot of time together. So this peace of mind,
which we keep going back to, isn't it? Peace of mind.
Yeah.
Okay, then what's your best bit of advice for our listeners to find peace of mind? I know that's kind of an individualistic thing, but
it's very difficult. A very good way to find out, it's about to do something that you feel that it's creating peace of mind and it's not bothering anyone, because it works in that way as well. Let's say maybe I sit here and I talk about having peace of mind, but I'm making everyone's life miserable. That's
how you affect the world around you.
That's not fair, No. So it's not about doing what you love, but bothering no one.
And how your energy affects other people.
Yeah, it's like an ecosystem. It's like, I see it as an
everything
ecosystem.
has to be in harmony.
Yeah. What's music? Harmony. What's a painting? Harmony.
Well, that seems like a pretty good sort of stopping point, really. Boxi, that's been so interesting. And I understand now why Daniel suggested you as a guest. He kept saying, he's got such an interesting story. I'm like, yeah, but how? And he's, no, he'll tell you. There's too much. But we do have a closing tradition on the Creative Noah Land podcast. We like our guests to give some sort of inspiring quote or something that has inspired them along the way. And also suggest someone within your networks that you think might be an interesting guest to become on the Creative Noah Land podcast.
Yeah. A quote would be, find what you love and let it kill you.
Is that Bukowski? Oh, we found our synergy there, Boxi. I'm a big Bukowski fan.
I'm not a big fan, but I'm
like
a big...
quote.
I just love that quote.
Oh, man, I've
I
connected.
think that it implies a lot of what I was saying about the sacrifice.
I agree.
You're going to do what you love, but probably...
You'll have to sacrifice something for it. Whether it's family, money, financial wealth, ego, status.
There's a lot of sacrifice. If you're not willing to do the sacrifice...
That's very Buddhist, isn't it? Life is suffering, right?
Yeah, but the result, the outcome, it's something beautiful. If you're willing to do the sacrifice, the outcome, it's something beautiful. There are not many things that I can be 100% sure, but this is something that, trust me, through my experience, if you do the sacrifice, and I'm not talking about making a living of your art. It doesn't matter to me. People nowadays are so obsessed with, you're an artist only if you make your living out of art. That's bullshit. That's bullshit, I think that's an error, and that's keeping good people away from doing, what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
that
the fear.
People think, no, but I'm not good enough, and so I won't do it because I'm not good enough. I'm going to stick to this. It doesn't matter. Just do it. You'll see. You'll have an impact in your life. And if it makes an impact in your life, it's going to make an impact in others' lives, starting with your family and friends. So that's being an artist for me, in my opinion. It's not about the work. It's about the way you live.
Oh, Boxi, that's good. Is this going to be a little bit tricky for you? Someone else in your network to suggest as a guest?
I wish I could say something, but the people I would say you already interviewed, Daniel Lopez and Mark Wilkinson. Again, people, I have a very simple life. My life is spending time with my family and coming to the studio. So I'm not.
Well, you and I can go away and we can have a little chat. I'm sure there's someone, maybe there's someone even in Argentina or Spain that I might be able to speak to. But don't worry about that for now. And it will be a surprise for all of our listeners.
Okay.
When we move forward. Gracias, hombre.
Muchas gracias, gente. Gracias por escuchar. Thanks for listening.
De nada. Thank you so much, Boxi. You really are a box of tricks, and there is a lot of stories that go on your journey. So we are really grateful for you coming on the Creative No One podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Creative No One podcast. If you found anything inspiring or useful in this episode, please consider subscribing or maybe sharing the episode with a friend. Anything you can do to help promote and support Creative Noahland is so beneficial, and I really appreciate it. Check out the website and sign up to the newsletter to be the first to know of everything that's going on here in Creative Noahland. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, explore, inspire, and create.
Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question: what do I desire?